Hi, I'm Robin. I'm a lawyer and a writer and an advocate, and I'm mom to two little kids. Before I went to law school, I received a Bachelor of Science in Biology with a focus in human genetics. I went on to work at the Human Genome Project at UT Southwestern at Dallas. Suffice to say, I was a very normal person who believed in all things medicine, doctors, and vaccination. When our son was born in 2009, we had him vaccinated for hepatitis B at birth, as one does, and at 2 months old, we went ahead and let him have all 7 vaccines without me researching a single one of them. I put more thought into his car seat, his stroller, and the paint in his bedroom than I did into vaccination. And the fallout of my inaction to read up on vaccination was that he went into a really deep, unwakeable sleep the day that he was vaccinated. It lasted for hours. He had been a colicky baby. I had never experienced him sleeping like this. And then when he woke several hours later, he screamed a shrill, high-pitched scream that no human child should ever make. He was in a full-body pain. I was on the phone constantly with the doctor's office. I was told that it was normal, that it was pain from the injection site, and that I should just give him some of the Tylenol that they had sent me home with. The long-term fallout was that he developed eczema, and people tend to think that eczema is just a rash, but if you're an eczema mom, you know that eczema is not just a rash. It was cracked, weeping, painful skin on his wrists, his ankles, behind his knees, inside his elbows, on his cheeks. He was reacting to everything because he had developed 12 allergies, and 2 of them were deadly. So my son is 10 years old now, and we have almost lost him to anaphylaxis when he was exposed to peanut 5 times. This is not something that any parent should ever have to go through, facing death on a regular basis just with our child eating food. At any point in time that he eats something new, he has maybe 45 minutes to live if we made a mistake, as we have done 5 times in the past. What few people know is that aluminum has been used in vaccines since the 1930s, and it has never been safety tested. It never had to be safety tested. Vaccination and the adjuvants that go along with them are just approved together. There's no studies done on aluminum. If you look through the literature that the FDA offers on the safety of vaccination aluminum, you would probably stop vaccinating your kids when you realize that there is none. There's no safety studies at all, and that scientists have known at least since the 1960s, if not sooner, that we're stimulating the Th2 side of the immune system of these babies when we inject them with aluminum. And not only are you creating antibodies to whatever antigen you're injecting with the vaccination, but you're creating antibodies to any bystander proteins, which is why we're in a food allergy epidemic, since we have drastically increased our vaccination schedule since the late 1980s and the early 1990s. Parents today are making fear-driven decisions with this vaccination schedule. I know that I was. We no longer know how to care for sick kids. We don't know how to keep a child comfortable when they have measles, keep them hydrated, which is the most important thing. Very few parents know about the dangers of treating fevers with fever reducers and what that does to a child's body and how it suppresses their immune system, allowing an infection to run rampant. We aren't told anything about making sure that our children always have adequate vitamin A levels. We're not told anything about treating whooping cough with vitamin C or suction. The impact that vaccination has had on public health has been blown grossly out of proportion, especially compared with other public health measures such as washing your hands with soap or sanitation or not allowing livestock to live in your house anymore. Nowhere does the scientific literature of the 1960s or 70s support this claim that vaccination is responsible for the increased lifespan of American children. I am not against vaccination in the sense that if somebody wants to have true informed consent, and that goes well beyond being handed a single sheet of paper at the doctor's office called the vaccination information statement. That is not informed consent. Vaccine safety advocates aren't trying to make vaccines illegal. They want parents to know what they're doing and make an informed decision just as you would for any other medical procedure. Human beings are not all identical. Those are called triplets or twins. All of us are different, and yet we have these one-size-fits-all vaccines and the one-size-fits-all vaccination schedule. And every few years, they're trying to add another vaccine to it, and they're trying to combine vaccines. This year, you should expect to see a 6-in-1 vaccine. That way they can mentally open up some space on the children's schedule and add more vaccines, such as maybe an RSV vaccine if something like that gets approved, or a norovirus vaccine, which is food poisoning. But human beings are not identical. We all have different genetic makeup. Dr. Poland with the Mayo Clinic came out a few years ago talking about how people of African descent have this tremendous response to the rubella vaccine, to the point that he said he thinks they should only be receiving half a dose of the rubella vaccine. What are we giving to children in this combined MMR vaccine where parents have no say in which vaccine their kids receive or how much of that vaccine their children are receiving? What are we doing to African American children by essentially double dosing them on rubella? The European Council conceded that people of Nordic descent carried a gene that was activated during the 2009 swine flu pandemic when they were given an H1N1 vaccine, and it caused narcolepsy all across the country. And yet here we have medical providers who are dismayed at the allegation that not every vaccine is appropriate for every single American infant. We're told that vaccine injuries are 1 in a million. Do you know where that number comes from? It comes from the fact that we have a vaccine injury compensation program because vaccine manufacturers cannot be sued in civil court. And for every 1 million doses of vaccines that are administered in America, only one case is financially compensated through this practically secret court that almost no doctors or lawyers even know about. How is that 1 in a million if nobody even knows about it to file a case? The fact is, in 2007, our HHS gave a $1 million grant to Harvard Pilgrim to get to the bottom of how prevalent is vaccine injury in America. We have this passive system. It's archaic. It's called the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. You probably never heard of it. And so they gave this $1 million grant to Harvard Pilgrim. Harvard Pilgrim went back through the records of 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009. Their conclusion was that vaccine injuries most likely happen 1 per 39 doses. So what do you think our HHS did with that information? Nothing. It just went away. Those were your taxpayer dollars. Don't you deserve better than that? Vaccine safety science has proven to be no more reliable than tobacco science. Studies are intentionally short, some just a few days, 4 or 5 days, some just a few weeks, so that later arising adverse events are never caught. And sure, here in America, we have some populations that feed into this vaccine safety data link that surveys people for years and years, if not decades. But Europe has the same thing. And so let's go back to those 1,300 kids that developed narcolepsy in 2009. It wasn't the surveillance system that caught them. That signal was too small. 1,300 kids who developed lifelong narcolepsy was too small of a signal for the surveillance system to pick it up. It was only discovered because a man in Finland who ran a sleep clinic happened to notice the uptick in new patients, and all of them had received the swine flu vaccine. Why are we trusting post-marketing surveillance to pick up anything? And now we're at the point in America that we might be looking at forced vaccination for the first time in our lives. We've got a multinational race to bring a COVID-19 vaccine to market, despite the fact that Dr. Peter Hotez from Baylor University in Houston went before Congress to testify about how disastrous his coronavirus vaccine was that he worked on several years ago. He injected his laboratory ferrets with his coronavirus vaccine. Everything looked great. They were making antibodies. They thought this was going to be a blockbuster success of some sort. Then they go and they expose the ferrets to wild coronavirus, and guess what happened? They got incredibly sick, far sicker than the unvaccinated ferrets, and they died. Who's going to want to take this vaccine? Even Dr. Anthony Fauci went on a Facebook Live with Mark Zuckerberg a few weeks ago where he said that the people who are volunteering in these vaccine trials are not going to be picking up this kind of signal of what they're calling this paradoxical enhanced immune reaction. The volunteers are not going to be picking up on this. Fauci told Mark Zuckerberg, and this is still on Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook page, you can go find it, that the only way to pick up on this is to vaccinate mass populations and have people go out and encounter wild coronavirus. And if they get sicker than the unvaccinated people and they die, then we know that that's happening. In just the last 4 years, we built a backbone of advocacy all across America. If you don't want to be the guinea pig, then you need to reach out to your state's medical freedom groups and learn about exemptions, learn about the legislative process, the committee hearings, how to talk to your lawmakers, because this train is barreling towards us real quick. And if you want to stop it, then we've all got to stop it together.